now we're going to move into part 2. We're going to do a little art history. Do I have any art majors in the room? Oh, thank God. Okay. All right. It's art history time. Again, this won't be boring because like it's incredibly rudimentary. I, again, was an English major, not an art major. And I like art museums. I'm not like, oh, every time I visit a city, that's the first place I go. No, but I have visited cities. I like a good art museum. I think it's inspiring. Cool. So this is actually an excellent book, Eros in the Mind's Eye. It's like a collection of essays and different writings. And it's just, I love it because even later in the book, which I won't cover today, it goes into film. And I'm a huge movie person. Do I have any movie people? Love it. So I actually got the book because there was an essay in there talking about like Fay Wray as like a sex symbol in like King Kong and stuff like that, and then later into horror movies, which are my thing. But I went to the early boring part of the book for this talk because I was so excited about the talk and I actually dove into it. And it's very fascinating. So we're going to talk about some art history and some imagery. And oh, look, it's a naked woman. Oh, cover it up. No. It's art. It's fine. This is what we're going to talk about. All right. We're going to go back like over 500 years for a second. Just in case you thought boudoir was like modern and new. I don't know. Y'all see some of those cave paintings? You're like, whoa. Okay. 16th century Italian art. This is the quote I want to share with you. So the solitary figure represented is usually a goddess. She's like doing the C in the YMCA. Performing some activity in a boudoir. What does boudoir mean? Okay, boudoir means, it's the French word for like a woman's quarters. So it's like where the women traditionally could go. She could be away from like her family, her husband, society, everything. She could unbuckle her corset, let her hair down, sit, eat, cry. You know, she didn't have to perform a certain way. She could just be who she was. That's what boudoir meant. So it was also like a bathroom, you know, that just a woman's private area. Okay. At times, the female figure may be reclining on a bed or sofa. Okay. Rarely, if at all, is a male depicted as an object of eroticism or sexual fantasy in this period. Okay, so just interesting facts. So here we have Danae by Correggio in the 16th century. Look, it's a female figure reclining on a bed or sofa. She's nude. There's nipples. And then there's like some little cherubs with her. For some reason, they just like the cherubs. I'll explain that later. Then we're going to skip 100 years, okay? So now let's look at the 17th century Italian art. There is a change from the 16th to the 17th century. 16th century's sexual fantasy and disguised eroticism to the 17th century's Puritan version of an ancient myth. You know who else, what other culture was really influenced by the Puritans? Ours, okay? And it's very important to just look at these things objectively and be like, huh, that's interesting. That's a belief system. And just to acknowledge how it's impacted even our lives today in 2025 America. We've been depicting images of eros, so like eroticism, where we get the word erotic, that's just eros. It's like the Greek word for passionate romantic love. So they had several different words for love. So eros is just like passionate love. It's talking about sex. So Danae, oh my gosh, that was the same title as the last one, right? Oh, 100 years later. Same one, but it's just depicted a little differently. Oh my God, Rembrandt. Rembrandt lighting, photographers? Yeah, okay. Again, this is about the extent of my knowledge of this stuff. But he painted Danae, and a lot of people think that like this guy over here in the background, that's kind of meant to represent like the artist and the viewer. Okay? Because he's not like participating in the scene. She's clearly not concerned with the fact that he's there, but he's just kind of like looking at it. She's nude, reclining on a bed or sofa. They just put a little different spin on it. They actually made, that first one was, that one we showed a second ago was showing like aristocrats. This one was supposed to show more of like a middle class person, okay? So we've got, in art, right, religion, class, those things tend to like shroud these different ideas and, you know, points of these paintings. So in both cases, both the artist and viewer are the voyeur. If you're not familiar, voyeur, it means, from the dictionary, one who seeks sexual stimulation by visual means. So it's also like seeking intimacy without participation. Okay, voyeur. Voyeuristic, we talk about that. So we've got these two really similar pieces. They're both called Danae. They're both, that's a Greek myth. They're a nude woman reclining. Interesting. Then we move to 18th century British art. And this is a piece I really want you to remember. Has anyone seen this piece before? Like at a museum? Oh, I saw one. It's really like, whew. If you can't tell very well, there's like an incubus sitting on her chest here. There's a horse peering in, like this horse eyes. He's like peering in the background. And then we've got our female subject, and she has the weight of this incubus like on her chest, okay? So Fuseli was the artist for this piece. He was described as being intense, fiery, and erudite, so like full of knowledge, but criticized for being immoral. Oh my God, put that on my tombstone. No. Okay, in 1806, Edward Days called Fuseli the principal hobgoblin painter to the devil, which if my grandma saw most of my work, she'd probably call me the same thing. And this amused Fuseli, who delighted in commenting sarcastically on his good relationship with the devil, which I think is very funny. Because really, just like when people see something weird or like, oh, it's sexual, it's evil, right? We're so quick to put good and bad on things. But really, he was painting an incredible idea. Did you know Sigmund Freud had this up in his office? Because many interpret this painting as the reality of sexual repression. You repress it, you say it's bad, you don't go. She's sleeping alone. This woman's sleeping alone. And there was actually like a folklore around the time that when a woman slept alone, so she never got married, even though she was fertile and of age, basically the devil would just come sit on her. And that means like, even if you say you don't have sex or want sex, your body still will at some point, probably when you're alone, asleep. That's what this means. It's just talking about repression. So, whether it's 1725 or 2025, we see some similarities. Different is considered scary by some and exciting by others, okay? Butts are considered good or bad depending on class and social context. I say butts as in just, you know, nude figures. Culture cloaks its need to create depictions of the nude form with myth. Like, you know, you go to the museum and it's like this woman, like this voluptuous woman with her bosom hanging out, and it's like very like whatever, and then it's like there's like some title, it's like John the Baptist with blah blah blah, because they're like, well, it's from the Bible, so it's fine. You know, like it's just we've had all these different ways, or we use Greek myth, or oh well, this is the aristocracy, or this represents this. It was just all ways that this was like socially acceptable to put out there. Because guess what? We wouldn't still be here if humans weren't still having sex all the time. It's kind of like evolutionarily why we exist, to procreate. It's a huge part, but culture has put all these symbols and weight and morality on all of it. And so we as boudoir photographers, we got to know where we stand on this stuff. And a lot of times we're like, oh, I guess I believed that, but why? I just want you to get curious. So the female subject is seen as more of a victim. The incubus is the devil. Horse in this era in paintings meant sex. You can guess why. Okay, Freud had this painting in his office, and it illustrates the nightmare of sexual suppression. That's why it's called The Nightmare. Now, here's the thing about Fuseli. Most of his depictions of women were kind of not super empowering or anything. That was kind of his bent toward the situation. So I'm not saying oh, he was so great. I'm not saying he's good or bad. He definitely had his flaws. But also, I will note, as one of our attendees said earlier, and I'll come back to this, it's I talk to a lot of my students are men, and they're like, oh, I don't know if I can do boudoir photography. Hey, all these paintings so far have been by men. I'm just saying. Okay, so Then let's contrast that with the French Rococo artist. To them, sex was fun, a game to be played for the mutual enjoyment of both men and women. This was also going on in the 18th century. Has anyone seen The Swing at a museum? Yeah, a lot of people recognize this one. I remember the first time I walked up to it and saw it, it's like, it jumps off the canvas. I mean, it's so bright and beautiful. You've got this woman, she's swinging. You've got this man, and he's like, hey, girl. Look at the line. Look how her skirt is lifted up, and look at the line his arm is drawing in the direction of the painting. Okay, it's there, all right? It's all there. But she's not being victimized, right? She has agency. She can swing back and forth. It's flirty. It's collaborative. It's magical, it's bright, it's fun. So I want you to think about the last one we just looked at, the image of that incubus just sitting on her chest. Now I want you to think about her in this, okay? That's where I'm going with all this. You can do boudoir to someone, or you could do boudoir with someone. Exploit and power. That is the point of everything I'm talking about today. To versus with. And when we start out in this business, we do stuff to our clients because we're like, nope, you have to do this because that's what this one educator said, and that's how this lighting ratio needs to be, and that's because we're just so concerned. We're still learning how to drive the car, so we're just worried about the rules and the stick shift, and that's all we can focus on. But once we get going, you know, like when you start to learn how to drive, after a few months or years, you just get from point A to point B, and you're like, wait, did I drive or did you? You don't even remember because that stuff comes so naturally to you. You can be focused on other things. We all start out doing it to people. No, you have to be this idea that's in my head. But as we just open ourselves up, as we gain confidence, as we own who we are as a creative and just who we are as a person, we can be like, hey, come into this space. Play with me. Let's play. Let's make something together. It's so much more fun. So exploiting is to do something to someone for my sake, and empowering is to do something with someone for their sake. And then the reward and the good feeling I get as the creator and the service provider is like a bonus. Once sex is viewed as something immoral or forbidden, its depiction requires and assumes a heightened tension and power. See Playboy. We'll get to that. That's part of my research too. Okay, 19th century Victorian era. Okay, I see this picture. You're like, Mitzi, that's not a painting. That's just like a Google image of Victorian furniture. It is. It's just because what I want you to think of when you think of the Victorian era is the fact that they would cover the legs of couches to not remind men of a woman's leg and feel tempted. That's how repressed it was. That's how modest we were, right? Queen Victoria. Okay. Like the anti-sex symbol, I feel like. All right, and yet, oh, look at this painting, the mirror. There's even nipples in it. Isn't that beautiful? Still, Eros walked side by side with repression. Because guess what? Our sexuality, our vulnerability, our intimate nature as human beings, no matter what culture says about it, we still have to express something about it. We always have, and we always will. It's not new. I still remember this English teacher I had in high school. We were looking at, I was in the AP English class at first, and then it stressed me out too bad, and I moved down to on-level English. That class was crazy. I had this teacher. He was definitely like a functioning alcoholic. God, this guy, he was so funny. You could tell he used to be so passionate about English, and he was like, whatever. But anyway, there's this kid, James, in our class, who was like this troublemaker. And we were like reading a poem or something about like sexuality or whatever, and we were like unpacking like what it really meant. And it was like this old literature. And James perks up. He's like, what? Are they talking about sex? And then my English teacher, he's like, you think sex was invented when you hit puberty? That's what he said. Still, Eros walked side by side with repression. Leave It to Beaver, 1950s. Pinups. Moral majority, 1980s, Reagan era, Playboy. This is the one and only Playboy that I have. We actually had a relative pass away, and we got a bunch of their stuff. Jordan was going through it. Just they collected so much cool, random old stuff. And some of it was like good to sell. Some of it was good to give away, whatever. But there was like an old Playboy. And I had actually never like seen one in real life or like held one. And so we were looking through it and I was like, dang, this photography is so good. Like, it's beautiful. Like, I'm just like appreciating. I'm like, this was all shot on film. Like, oh, they have at least 6 lights in this setup. Wow, it's feathered beautifully. You know, all this stuff. But anyway, so that's just like a picture of mine. But yeah. Still, Eros walked side by side with repression. If there was like an alien that came to Earth and they said, show us images of reclining women who are fully or partially undressed, you could show them all these. They don't know the context. We know the context. There are some that my grandma would be like, oh, wow, art. And others my grandma would be like, oh, well. That one at the bottom, that's Peter Lindbergh, who did that one. I want you to just see, it's all just women laying on couches in various states of undress. It's us who puts all the meaning to it. Not that the meaning isn't significant, it is. But it's us. And the more uncomfortable thoughts you have, or the more things you're like, you push up against, or you're like unsure about, oh, that's giving you information of where you need to figure out what your philosophy is. It's right there. Jordan made this meme for our presentation today. I love it. I love it. So that's from like a 60s Playboy. And even when Jordan was making the meme, there was like another image and it showed nipple. I was like, nope, just show the one without the nipple though for this thing. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Because we're okay with those nipples. Those are fine. Why? Interesting. Very, very interesting. And again, we're approaching this with curiosity because we are creators. And when a client walks into our studio, we need to know why we do what we do, because it honors them. It respects them. When we say, this is why I do what I do, this is the type of work that I like to create, this is why. And then they can take it or leave it. So meanwhile, we're moving through 20th century America. Hollywood creates the modern goddess. What are some of the things that the modern goddess in Hollywood in like the mid 20th century, what are some of the things they have in common? Anyone? Just, they're all white, light skinned, okay. What else?
They all have like long eyelashes, dark lips, dark eyebrows.
They all are heavily made up. Yeah. Are they in thin bodies or larger bodies? Smaller bodies or larger bodies? Which one? Smaller, okay.
They're all about the same age.
Okay, yeah, they all have a relatively youthful appearance. Okay. They are all wearing like more formal clothing. Okay, interesting. Again, just traits. I love this poem by Kate Baer. I'm going to read it to you because to me this encapsulates this whole idea. Plot lines for female leads. She was a slip of a girl, slender and long, the most delicate hands, angular jaw, lean like a deer, moved like a swan. Unbuttered toast was the only thing she ate all day. What stands out to me when I read this as a photographer is how most of our posing rules use a lot of those words, don't they? Slender, elongate, delicate hands, chin forward, angular jaw, pose them to look leaner. I can make you look 20 pounds lighter, right? Moved like a swan. Can these words describe a woman? Yes. Is there anything bad about that? No. But when we say, that's the standard, That's when we're not really living in reality. And the thing is, our clients, they're going to think they're doing something wrong. So many women have just grown up in a society, hey, men have unrealistic standards too, and it's especially in the last 50, 60 years that has gotten harsher on men too. But we put these cultural ideals out there of how we're supposed to look, and then when we don't measure up, most people just apologize for it instead of questioning the ideals. They're like, oh, sorry, I just can't lose the weight. I just can't make myself look 20. It's like, well, you're 50. Of course you're not going to look like you're 20. That's fine. That's normal. I want to give you some quotes from these women that we just saw, okay? From the moment I walked down the street, Lana Turner said, in that first picture, they won't forget, I evidently was a so-called sex symbol to everyone except myself. For quite a while, I was ashamed to face people. Here she was, she made it. She's a starlet, right? Made it in a tough industry at a tough time. And then she hears from everyone like, oh, so I'm a sex symbol. That's what I've been reduced to. It was not empowering to her. Elizabeth Taylor, I don't want to be a sex symbol. I would rather be a symbol of a woman who makes mistakes, perhaps, but a woman who loves. Love is messy. Life is messy. I'm just going to say from the female experience I've had, being a woman and bearing children is messy. Everyone knows growing older is messy. Being a human being living in this life, we're more than symbols, we're people. I love this one by Hedy Lamarr. Any girl can be glamorous. All you have to do is stand still and look stupid. And what she means is all you have to do is be like, all right, do glamour to me. Put my makeup on. Pose this way. Whatever. Sorry. Weight on my back leg. Chin forward. I'm trying to. Pouty lip. Eyes. She's like, all you got to do is become what they want. Become a product, something to be sold. And then this next one. Ooh, this one gets me. I'm an actress. I have depth. I have feeling. But they don't care. All they want is an image. Rita Hayworth. I think many women you could talk to, if they were being honest, would say something similar at one season of their life or another. I have these things I want to do, I have these things I want to say, but people seem more concerned with how I look and that I don't cuss and whatever. All they want is an image. Glamour was done to them, not with or for them. And again, glamour is not good or bad. Do you know what glamour literally means? Illusion. It's cool. It's fun to play dress up. It can be incredibly empowering, I think. I focused on glamour photography for several years. I saw people feel great, like have a glamour session with me, and then later I find out they like quit the job they hated or they left the relationship they hated. They got something better for themselves. Cool. Some people can have a very empowering experience with glamour. But I think in our industry, we need to be careful because it's easy to say that that's the way to do it. It's not the only way. There are many ways. But it's easy to do glamour to people, not with them. The depiction of sexuality in fantastic, so like fantasy, fantastic art and film, provides not only a vehicle for gaining insight into the artist and his culture, but also the opportunity to take a new look at ourselves as well. That's art, guys. You're going to look at a piece of art and it's going to tell you something about yourself. You will see in art whatever you want to see. I still remember I had a family member a few years ago. I posted a self-portrait. Ever since I went flat after breast cancer, I post a lot of topless photos of myself on the internet for free. It's great. And I had posted this image and it was like, oh, to me, it empowered me. Like my shirt was off. It was like bare chest. You know, you'll see it in the next slideshow, in the next portion. But I remember a family member actually reached out to me and she put all this meaning on it. She said it looked like I was, angry at God. She said, you know, she just said these very specific things that I was like, whoa, like, and I remember in that moment, instead of just jumping to my defense or getting offended or anything like that, I just wrote back to her, my art is a mirror. You will see in it whatever you want to see. That's all it is. So literally everyone else who would comment or talk to me about that portrait, Mitzi, this is so strong. This is so powerful. Wow, this is so empowering. Like, that's so cool how you wanted to move toward self-acceptance, blah, 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 you know, because that's what they chose to see. You'll see whatever you want to see in something. And so what it's showing you is telling you what you believe. So I'm calling this section, No Sex Unless It's a Myth. 17th century Europe, okay, Greek myth, then it's okay. How have we done that in modern culture? Pulp Fiction, sci-fi novel covers, Star Wars. Look, that's our modern myth, right? The hero's journey. It's the reason why they have like 8,000 Star Wars shows now and all this stuff. I was telling Jordan recently after we saw one of the newer ones in theaters a few years ago, I was like, I bet by the time our son is an adult, Star Wars will be like, the mythology will be synonymous and just as prevalent as like Christmas. Like, I really think, like, it's so fascinating to me. Romance novel covers, right? Because this isn't real, so it's okay. It's not real. I mean, because the thing is, it's speaking to the real heartbeat of what our culture is facing and going through. Like all myth. Myth is the realest thing we have. That's why I love movies, because the trends in movies speak to the culture that they reflect. That is the art we make now, right? I think movies are huge. Like, yes, there are still artists who create amazing works in museums, but we have all these other art forms now, and like they're always talking to us and reflecting back to us what we believe as a culture. Sex is how our species survives. It always will be the motivation of creation. And if you think about it, gosh, I'm just remembering, I used to teach sex ed, like to high schoolers, and I'm like getting flashbacks right now. This is like the opposite. No, but the thing is, like, guys, it's just how we survive, and it's the motivation of creation. Especially in a world of like AI art, like a lot of us joke, we're like, AI can't be hungry or have sex, so it's never actually going to make real art. Right? Because it speaks to the most intimate, scary, messy, beautiful, wonderful part of humanity. Has anyone ever had a baby or watched a baby be born? Whoa, it's crazy. You are different after that. You are different. Even though we've been doing it this whole time, constantly, it's still absolutely mind-blowing. And when you think about intimacy between people, and I'm not just talking about sexual intimacy, I'm talking about intimacy in friendship, intimacy in family relationships, in friendships, in partnerships, that's a vulnerable space. You can't do those relationships to someone. We try. We can try to control other people. We can try to keep ourselves safe and just people please so that other people will be okay with us and we never have to let our guard down. I mean, we have a million ways we can do that. We can try to just do relationships to people, or we can have relationships with them. And that requires vulnerability. And that's where the magic is. It's all creation.